This is my dream dinner party. I want to be the hostess with the mostess. I find nature very soothing, restorative, uplifting. I think they have to come with openness and curiosity. So some fresh flowers. I would never use faux or false. She wasn't afraid to be herself. I'm not very good at following a recipe, so I like to make it up as I go along. Lots of garlic. There's a theme of garlic here. I would want to create a very tactile, nature-inspired sort of scene.
Hello and welcome back to Tables to Talk About. Today I'm chatting to the brilliant Cate St Hill, interiors writer, stylist and all-round expert in creating calm, beautiful spaces. I have followed her for years and Cate is known for her soft, minimal style, think warm naturals, neutral textiles and design that is all about how a space makes you feel. Her book, The Japandi Home, explores just that, blending Japanese and Scandinavian influences to create interiors rooted in simplicity and well-being. We chat about her approach to hosting, the beauty of unfussy dinners, and how even the smallest details at the table can help create a sense of calm and connection. Let's get into it. This episode of Tables to Talk About is sponsored by Studio Dine Store, our very own collection of playful design-led tableware made to bring a bit of joy to your dinner table. I started Studio Dine back in 2019, and when lockdown hit and events were on pause, I launched the store as a way to keep the creativity and the tablescaping going. It all started with colourful dinner candles and has grown into a curated selection of unique pieces to help you style your table your way, whether it's a full-on feast or a snacky night in. Head to studiodine.com to check it out and use the code Tables to Talk About for 15% off your first order.
I'm very excited. I think it's a perfect concept for a podcast, and I've had lots of time to think about it, and it got me really thinking. So I'm excited to share more.
I'm excited to hear your answers. I love it when people say they really took their time with the questions. I think, some of them, we were saying before, some of them could be quite hard.
I found it really hard to think of just one person. So one dead person, one alive person, one fictional. I mean, I could probably think of 20 people to invite to one dinner party. So it was hard whittling down. And whenever there's two choices, I want to pick both. And I find it quite hard to just stick to one thing.
Yeah. Well, there's not too many rules. So if you do have two choices for something, you can always give me both.
Okay, then the rules.
It's your dream dinner party after all. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about what you do for anyone that doesn't follow you already?
Yes, that's a good place to start. So I'm an interiors stylist and consultant and content creator, and I can now call myself an author because my book, The Japandi Home, came out in May last month in the UK and US, published by Union Square, which was very exciting. It's about the fusion between Nordic minimalism and Japanese design, all about creating a soothing sanctuary at home inspired by simplicity and harmony and balance. So yeah, that's me.
So exciting. Was it I bet it was like a whole process writing a book. Is it exciting to finally have it out there?
I've always wanted to write a book, and I have actually written a book before this, but it was for the Royal Institute of British Architects. So it was very much a niche book for architects, whereas this one was more of a passion project, which I put my sort of heart and soul in, and had a research trip to Japan. I really put a lot of thought and love into it. So it's really lovely to see the physical thing with my name on it in my hands. A bit of a dream come true.
Yeah. When how long were you working on it from kind of start to release?
So they approached me back in 2023 saying they wanted someone to create a book about the concept of Japandi. So I had to create a proposal, some example chapters, and they literally just gave me the word, and then I had to sort of develop the whole idea around it. And I wanted to give it a bit more depth because Japandi has become a bit of a trend when actually it's two cultures with a rich history, a rich philosophy behind their design language. And I really wanted to give that some substance. So I did a lot of research, went to the National Art Library, went to Japan, went to Scandinavia, and then spent 6 months writing it and about 3 months going through the imagery. I was really perfectionist about it. I was probably a right pain to work with because I just wanted to get everything really perfect, which is ironic because one of the ideas behind the book is embracing imperfection.
Yeah, but I feel like also when you're like putting your name to something and you've worked so hard on something, you do want it to be the best that it can be, right?
Absolutely. And I was conscious these were two cultures which had such depth and variation to them that I really wanted to do that justice. And I'm neither Japanese or Scandinavian. So I also interviewed Japanese architects and designers, Scandinavian designers, to get their perspective to tell that whole story, which I can give a perspective and use those ideas as inspiration for how people might decorate or live. But it was really interesting to get their insights on what Japandi means today in Japan and Scandinavia.
How did you initially get into interiors?
I studied architecture. I went to UCL to a school called the Bartlett and studied architecture, did 2 years in practice, and then decided I didn't want to become an architect. I did about 5 years out of, you have to do maybe 7 years. Instead, I became a journalist for a design magazine. On the side, I set up a blog back in the day when blogging was a thing, before social media and Instagram took over. And I did up my own home, started showing my home on Instagram. People started asking me for their help. And before long, about 8 years ago, I set up my own business, offering design consultations mixed with content creation, mixed with styling and photography for brands. And I've sort of created this job, which I didn't think I could create or would be a job, but somehow I make it work.
Amazing. I love it. When you hear how someone's like career journey has progressed in a kind of not necessarily straight line way, when people have like started with one thing, figured out that it wasn't necessarily for them, and then kind of wormed their way into finding out what their thing actually is. I think it's such a nice story. Anyway, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I'm excited to hear about your dream dinner. Before we get into whether you are going to be the host of your dinner party or not.
I didn't realize that was an option, that I didn't need to
Yeah.
be the host. Okay.
You can absolutely have someone else host for you. I feel like your interior style is very like calm and thoughtful, fairly minimalist. Like, does that translate into how you host when you have people over? Are you a big planner? Are you more laid back?
Well, most of the hosting I do at my own home, which is very minimal, and you can probably get a taste of it from behind me. I'm not very casual and minimal in how I go about hosting, I suppose, because I'll say, "Oh, just come round. It's really casual. Just have a few drinks. Don't worry, don't bring anything." And in my mind, I'm planning a Pinterest board. I'm curating the flowers. I'm hand sewing some napkins because I can't find what I want in the shops. So I don't do things by halves. And even though it might look minimal and calm and serene, under the surface, I'm like a swan flapping. And I do get in a bit of a flap, but it's kind of the adrenaline which I really thrive off and really enjoy. And then it's so rewarding when you see people, your friends, your family, enjoy the little details which you've thought about.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it's hard for people not to like to be totally calm when hosting. I like almost don't trust it if you haven't like got yourself into a bit of a flap about something when you've got people coming round.
It's like when you used to get ready for a night out. Sometimes the getting ready was as much fun as the night out. So I feel like the prep is as much fun as the party. And I sort of thrive off that, as well as the actual enjoying the moment with when it's all done and you can enjoy it.
Yeah, I think especially when aligns with what you do as well, when you're kind of given an opportunity to do something exactly how you would do it, rather than necessarily how you would do it for a client or for someone that you're working with. So yeah, sometimes it's nice to like have that process and take things slow and do it on your own terms, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I'm a bit of a control freak as well. So I'm not very good at handing over things to other people or delegating. So I think I can do everything myself. And sometimes
I think that's a business owner thing.
yeah, probably. I even do my accounts. I do everything. I'm really bad at passing things on. And I recently had my book launch, and I did everything, the flowers, the organizing everything. But I had a photographer, Issy Ryder, and I just knew that I had to hand over one thing. I couldn't be with my guests, enjoy it, have a drink, and also take photographs. So I had to let one thing go. And I was really pleased I did, because we got some beautiful images.
Yeah, that just sounds like the perfect thing to have handed over. So, in terms of your dream dinner party, will you be hosting, or now that you know somebody else can host, will you be passing on the baton?
Okay, so I had planned this with me hosting, and I think I would host because, again, I'm not handing control like that over to someone.
Yeah.
When this is my dream dinner party, I wanna be the host, the hostess with the
Hmm.
mostess. I don't think I'm a natural host, so I'm not the loudest in the room, and I'm not, the one who has the most to say. I'm sort of a recovering introvert in a way. I'm becoming more extroverted the older I get, and I think I'm extroverted in the right moments and in on my own terms. So I get a bit overwhelmed with lots of people if it's a big social occasion or a big work event I have to go to. But I really thrive in small groups where I can have meaningful conversation and really connect to people. So I think something like this, where it's just a few people, would really suit me quite well.
I feel very similar. I recently read something that says actually, if you're an introvert, you're not necessarily always introverted, because if you're around the right people, you become that extroverted part of yourself, which I find so interesting. You don't have to be an introvert in every situation, but it's more if you feel comfortable in a situation or not.
Absolutely. If I feel really comfortable with someone, I'll bring more of myself out because I'll feel more at ease. It's like if you share something vulnerable, then the other person feels like they can share something vulnerable back and you have a more interesting conversation. Introvert is it's not so much about how you appear, but where you get your energy from. So you could be extroverted for a short amount of time, but it could really drain your energy. And then in order to regain that energy back, you have to spend time by yourself. And that's sort of what happens to me. I have a battery, a bit like a sim, the games program Sims, and my battery can run low. And when it gets to that low level, I shut down and I need to go and recharge the batteries in my own peace and calm.
Hard relate. So it's like host your dream dinner party on the Saturday and then spend all of Sunday recovering.
Yeah, probably. And my friends say like a mask sort of comes down across my face, and she's like, "Yeah, she's gone. She's reached her introvert limit."
Yeah, everyone needs to leave now. Party's over. Okay, so you're going to be hosting. Talk to me about your location. Where are you going to be hosting from?
Most people would probably assume that I would have it at home because that's kind of what I'm known for, my minimal neutral interiors. But today we're going outside. I find nature very soothing, restorative, uplifting. I love being outside when I'm not in my home. We are going to Charleston House, the home of the Bloomsbury Group in East Sussex. It's very not minimalist. It's not minimalist at all. They painted every surface, they have a lot of pattern, a lot of color. So it might be a surprising choice for a minimalist like me, even though I like my home to be calm because I find that's where I get my peace, because the outside world feels colorful and noisy and overwhelming. And to come back to a neutral space, it sort of grounds me. I still get inspiration from historic places which show a lot of character and a lot of interest. And I love the sense of freedom which the Bloomsbury Group sort of inspired. They had a way of living which was free from conventional rules and restrictions. They've got this garden which is wonderfully wild and designed by Roger Fry. And there's flowers everywhere. There's poppies and alliums and delphiniums and roses. They have this terrace at the end, which they specifically positioned to catch the evening sun. I'm imagining a late summer's evening as the sun is setting, the sort of golden dappled light, the flowers are swaying in the breeze, there's sort of bees buzzing. It feels very idyllic, and that's where I'd like to escape to.
We've actually had a lot of outdoor sunset dinner party locations, and I do think it's so valid, because it's just like the perfect time of day, isn't it, to like sit around a table and enjoy a meal. So yeah, that sounds amazing. Let's talk table then. What's your approach to a table setting? I'm sure you have set many a table through your interiors work, so I'd love to hear what you're doing with the table.
I think it's about setting the right mood for your gathering. And a good tablescape should excite the eye and be a feast for all the senses, not just your taste buds. And for me, it's the total opposite of just plonking the plates down and hoping for the best. I would really take my time to curate a beautiful scene. And I think it's that thought and intention behind it which people notice and appreciate. I would want to create a very tactile, nature inspired sort of scene using the tablecloth as your base and then building up on that. So I like to have a neutral backdrop, as I would with my interiors, and then the art and the artwork and the furniture sort of bring the life and the colour. So I would sort of do the same with a table and have a neutral tablecloth, and then bring in lots of fresh wild greenery, a few colourful plates. I don't mind a little pop of colour, so some green plates, some vintage plates. I like mixing and matching. What it looks like also sets the tone and how it will feel. So, like an interior, you want to think about how you want to feel in the space as much as how it looks. I think the same can be said with how you create a dinner party or an event to help your guests relax and get into the moment.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. I think taking the time to figure out what the overall feeling that you want to create is can
Mm,
totally
mm.
change the whole event that you're having, whether that is like a dinner party, a wedding, or whatever. You're kind of setting the scene for how you want the day to go. Are there any particular like small details you love to add to a table to make things feel special, or anything you come back to kind of time and time again when you're tablescaping?
I think definitely some fresh greenery, so some fresh flowers. I would never use faux or false. So I think the scent is also quite powerful when you're there as well. So not just thinking about one sense, but all the senses. So you really bring it to life. The ambience, so lots of candlelight, lots of dinner candles. If you're inside, dimming the ceiling light or putting some lamps on, I think that really sets the mood as well. Having some proper napkins, some linen napkins, not paper. Again, it's all about the tactility. And then having a little handmade detail or something which is really thoughtful and you've made just for the occasion. For example, a name place which has been handwritten, because I think people really notice that little thing and it makes the guest feel a little special.
Yeah, that's lovely. Are there any particular places that you go back to time and time again for like tableware pieces or any of those things that you mentioned?
Yes. So tableware, I love the Finnish brand Itala and Monoware, who are based in London. They both create very simple tableware. So I like having a full set of dinnerware, which is plain and simple, and then adding with side plate or a few bowls, which are vintage or different colors. So I love mix and matching. Hay have some really good bowls at the moment, which are, are bright green, and they're called the Barrow bowls. And I love having that little pop of color. I also love vintage. I think that really adds a different quality to a table rather than it all being pristine and perfect and new. Especially for glassware, vintage can be really good. TK Maxx, surprisingly, is quite good for picking up a speckled bowl or an unusual plate.
Yeah, nice. I do think those extra bits of like personal touches that you don't necessarily get just by going to buy like a whole crockery set or something from one place are what can really set a table apart. Like those handwritten details and that vintage piece that you found in a charity shop or on holiday, or things that really make it feel like yours and special. You mentioned candles. Will you have candles on your table outside, or because the sun's still setting, will you leave them?
Yes, definitely have candles if weather and wind permitting. But I think, yeah, there's nothing like a candle to set the mood. It just feels romantic and convivial, and I would definitely want candles wherever I was.
Okay, let's talk guests. First of all, what do you think makes a good and a bad dinner party guest?
That's a really good question because it's not just about the host, but the guests and what they bring. So I think they have to come with openness and curiosity. They really have to get into the moment and be willing to have a laugh or get involved in a game and not take themselves too seriously. So I like a guest who really gets into things and is willing to make a bit of a tit out of themselves if they need to. I like someone who is a good conversationalist. So asks questions, doesn't just talk about themselves. I think that can be a bit of a bore if someone at the dinner table is just going on and on about themselves. They have to be curious. Also, someone who doesn't arrive too early. There's nothing worse than someone who arrives too early just as you're finishing setting up and you're in a flap and you're like, ah, those would probably be the hallmarks of a good guest. But I think it's also up to the host to set the tone and set how you want your guests to behave. So you have to be the facilitator. If you want them to be vulnerable in conversation, or if you want them to bring something, you have to bring that too and set the example, and then they'll sort of follow the tone of how you want the evening to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, especially with people arriving early. I think if people give you some warning that they're going to arrive early, then fine. But there's nothing worse than that like last dash when you know you've like got something in the oven and then you're like you've still got to like pop some makeup on or like quickly change or and then somebody's there and you're trying to host and also like, oh, quickly let me pop over. I've just got to do this one thing, like sit down,
Mm.
wait, do you want a drink? Do you it all then that's when you start getting flappy, isn't it?
Yeah, unless they're a good friend and they're like, right, I can see you flapping, and they'll just get stuck in and help you with something and without even really having to ask.
Exactly. Okay, so who are you inviting? One, ideally one dead, one alive, one fictional, but let's see
This
what
was
they
so hard to choose. I could have picked so many more people, but we're going for an all-female lineup, first of all.
okay.
So the one dead, I would choose Lee Miller, the Vogue fashion model turned war photographer and reporter, recently immortalized by Kate Winslet in the film Lee.
Yes, I still haven't seen it, but I've heard such good things.
Fantastic film, a really good film. I really enjoyed it. She was one of the only women to go to the war zone, to the front line, to photograph and document it at a time when women didn't have the same freedoms as us. And whenever she got a no, or women can't do that, women aren't allowed to do that, she'd just say, why not? And she would get to where she wanted to go. So not only do I admire her photography because it's so beautiful and haunting and thought provoking, but she was an incredibly strong, determined woman, and I admire her resilience and her fortitude. And I think she would have some stories to tell, and she would hold no prisoners. So I think she'd say it how it is, and that would make for great conversation at a dinner party.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I've had that movie on my list for ages. I'm also a big Kate Winslet fan. Yeah, I would like definitely like to watch that. And I do think you're right. She would have loads of incredible conversation.
I would want to ask her so many questions about what it was like back then. And I think she also had this sort of liberal quality to her. There's images of her gathered around before the war when they would have dinner parties in their garden. And she's just sitting there topless, and they depict this in the film. And Kate Winslet goes completely topless. And I just love the idea that she wasn't afraid to be herself. And I'm sure she was very frank and very upright, very upfront, and that would be really curious and interesting.
Yeah, 1000%. Okay, great start. Who's your next guest?
Okay, so for the one that's alive, I have gone for Esther Perel, the Belgian American psychotherapist. I nearly went with Alan de Botton, a similar kind of person who. The British author who founded the School of Life and has written on love and relationships. They're both again, there's a theme of curiosity here. But I've gone for an all female lineup, and she does this podcast, Where Do We Begin? Where you sit in a live therapy session and listen to two real people having a therapy session. I've read her book, Mating in Captivity. She really has some forward thinking ideas about how we relate to each other, how relationships should evolve, and how we balance the intimacy and the fire and the passion of a relationship with the security of a long term partnership. I hate small talk and surface level chat. I'm very curious and would much rather know what makes someone tick, what they're passionate about, what really drives them, how they see the world, and how they connect with people. So I think having someone like that, she would ask those deep, interesting, meaningful conversations to really get to the nitty gritty of something. So I think she would be a perfect guest in the way that she would be a facilitator to ask those questions, and not be afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah, you're totally right. I also love just like finding out why people are the way they are. Like, I'm obsessed with like any of those personality quizzes that you can do on the internet. I've done them. Like, I think it's so interesting. And then I'll try and make anyone that will get involved do them as well so that I can understand why they're like they are as well. So that would be such an interesting conversation. I've never listened to her podcast, but I absolutely will.
Mm. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. At a dinner party, I like having conversation cards. So the School of Life
Hmm.
do some conversation cards, and I think she has some as well. It just helps break the ice and get people
Yeah.
talking about something which they might not necessarily volunteer themselves without that. And you could create your own conversation cards. You don't necessarily need to buy these, but I think it just gets people thinking and leads the conversation somewhere you might not have thought it would go, but you share something and then they share something, and suddenly you're having a really funny or interesting conversation about something you didn't expect.
Yeah, I think sometimes things like prompts like that can kind of cut the small talk in a really lovely way. You kind of go from like 0 to 100 and then you are in this like really deep conversation that you don't really know how you got to. But especially with friends that you maybe see fairly often, and like sometimes things like that are just things you've never thought to ask. I think that's really lovely. I love it when people are like keen to like have a deep chat in a dinner party situation. Who is your third guest?
So the fictional I found the hardest because I was thinking about it quite literally of maybe a Disney character or a Paddington or something.
Hmm.
I couldn't quite think of someone who I really related to. And then I thought fictional, they could come from a book. And I love
Hmm.
reading books. And we are in Charleston, where Virginia Woolf was. It was the gathering place of the Bloomsbury Group. So I've chosen Mrs. Dalloway from the same title book, Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, because she is also a hostess with the mostess. She's a party planner, and the whole book is set on one day when she's planning this evening event and she's contemplating her life choices, the passage of time, love, life. I think that would really fit with Esther Perel asking all these curious questions and Lee Miller having a lot to say about her life experiences. So Mrs. Dalloway, she's quite a complex woman. She's very socially adept. When I read a book, I always read the opening line and I can judge from the first line whether I will like the book or not. And this is a line that I will always remember. It's Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. And I think she's a
Hmm.
woman after my own heart. She was creating this gathering and she wanted to go and buy. She had
Yeah.
a servant or someone to go buy the flowers, but she wanted to go and buy the flowers. So Mrs. Dalloway also questioned some of the superficiality over these social events. This was set in the 1920s, so they were quite formal gatherings. So I feel like she would be the type of person who would dig down beyond the superficiality of it, like Lee Miller or Esther Perel would.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't just be surface level talk. They would be talking about love, life, what brings meaning to our life. Mrs. Dalloway was also someone who found joy in the little things in life, the little mundane things like going and choosing the flowers yourself and arranging the
Hmm.
flowers and getting that little joy from having that little moment where you put the flowers in a vase and you get that joy from it. I think she'd be a really curious, interesting person to add to the mix.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. It also sounds like they would gel very well as a group, and you'd get a lot out of not only being able to ask each of them questions, but them also interacting with each other. So yeah, great, great group. Let's move on to food. Do you find your approach to interiors overlaps with like how you cook or how you eat?
Sort of. I suppose my interiors are minimalist and seem quite curated and purposeful and poised, but I'm not the same as a cook, and I'm not very good at following a recipe, so I like to make it up as I go along. I'll use a recipe as inspiration, but then I'll completely go off piste and maybe try and combine two recipes, or then see what else I've got in the fridge and add it to the mix. So I'm not very good at following things and going by the rules. I like making things up as I go along. I'm not a very good baker for that reason, because you can't really make it up as you go along when you're baking a
Same.
cake. It has to be really precise. So I'm a terrible baker.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I hard relate to also the baking element because I just like to be able to, like you said, throw in something and see if it works. And
Mm.
usually with baking, it doesn't.
I'm not very good at measuring things, so I'll just sort of
Yeah.
guess it. And then also, I'm not very good at putting a timer on pasta or rice. I'll just be, it's
Mhm.
ready when it's ready. Like somehow I just know when it's ready and finished.
Yeah.
It just kind of works.
Yeah.
But
I
it really,
agree.
if I'm cooking with someone, it really frustrates them. And it's like, well, when's the pasta ready? And I'm like, I'll just know when it's ready.
Yeah, my husband will often like try and cook something that I would usually cook, and then he's like, "Well, how long does that need to be on? Have you set a timer for that?" And I'm like, "No, I'll just know when it's ready, or just like you'll be able to tell. It's fine." So frustrating. What are you going to be serving at your dinner party? Would you be the cook, or would you have someone else doing the actual cooking?
I didn't realize that was an option either, but I think I would delegate that. I do enjoy cooking when I have the time to go at my own pace, but for something like a dinner party, it would take the ease off to have someone else do that and know that they're doing it really well. And you can leave the kitchen and be with your guests, because that's what I find it a bit of a juggle when you're having to sort of finish off cooking, serve the drinks, and talk to your guests. So yeah, I'd probably delegate that one.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so what are you having for starter?
So they're all going to be sharing plates, because I think that makes it more, again, makes it more relaxed, more convivial, sets the tone of how the guests can behave, facilitates conversation. As I just find it's a bit more relaxed than here's your one meal and that's it. So for the starter, I'm choosing a mix of dishes, mainly seafood because I love seafood. So some clams and some garlic and parsley, shell on prawns, again, and loads of garlic and olive oil, smoked salmon on little toasts. I also love Parma ham and melon. I would just have a variety of things for people to help themselves with really good bread to mop it up. And I want people wiping their plates clean with the bread and like sauce dripping down their chin. I want them to really sort of dig in and enjoy it.
Do you have a go-to like bakery near you, or place you would usually go and get bread?
There's a really good bakery near me. I'm in Herne Hill, Brixtons, and it's Mayor's Bakehouse. And this wouldn't be for this, but she does the best cinnamon buns. And I've gone across the city and probably to other cities to try and find the best cinnamon bun. You can smell the cinnamon when you walk down the street outside before you've even got to her shop, and they're warm and they're sweet and they're gooey, and they are so delicious. She also does bread and other baked goods, but her cinnamon buns are the best.
Top tier. Okay, that's a great recommendation. Okay, so we're doing a kind of sharing situation. Good bread, lots of picky things.
For the start, I've chosen champagne because we're going all out and it's a celebration. So let's have the best.
Yeah, why not? Surprised that some people don't like really, really go all out with these dream dinners. If it's like money is no object, you can have anything you want, go for it. So yeah, champagne it is. What about Maine?
Going to have a whole cooked sea bass with lots of garlic. There's a theme of garlic here. Lots of lemon, parsley, beautifully presented on a beautiful sort of vintage platter. We're going to have a warm new potato salad with it, a fennel orange almond mint salad with it as well, heritage tomato salad, all different lovely salads with lots of fresh herbs and just really good quality ingredients, really good olive oil. So I suppose it's sort of Mediterranean inspired. Really fresh, vibrant to go with the beautiful setting outside.
Yeah, lovely. If you're outside in like a setting like that, it almost feels a shame not to use like seasonal local
Mm.
ingredients and bring those in some way, right?
Everything should be cohesive in a gathering, so it's all telling the same theme. And if you're sitting outside, you wouldn't want like a Boeuf Bourguignon or something really hot, and this is a
Yeah.
summer season. I want it to be light and fresh
Hmm.
and tie in with that natural theme. With this course, I think something a light, fresh, easy to drink white wine, something like a muscadet or a Picpoul de Pinet. I don't know a lot about wine. I know what I like drinking, but I'm not like a wine expert. I had a really good wine at my book launch from a female founded company called Emile Wines, and it was a Vermentino. And I've never had a
Hmm.
Vermentino before, but
Hmm.
I tend to describe a good white wine as easy to drink, but
Yeah,
it's
I know
easy
what
to
you
drink.
mean. Some white wines aren't easy to drink.
Yeah.
I'm like particularly fussy with a white wine. I don't know if this is a general thing, but I feel like white wines can be so different. And I'm not an expert by any means in wine, but I feel like there's a little bit less room for error with a red, whereas like a white, you can have like it feels like depending on also what you're eating, there's such a breadth of like different flavors. So yeah, you can have something that goes down really well or pairs really well with
Mm.
your lovely sea bass, or doesn't and is hard to drink.
Yeah, I don't like the sort of fruity white wines. I like something quite dry, almost palate
Mm.
cleansing to go with the light flavour of the fish. Nothing too heavy.
And dessert.
Usually a big fan of desserts. I don't have a huge sweet tooth. I would much rather order loads of starters, fill up on starters, than have a dessert. If it was just me, I'm quite happy with a dessert of just chocolate. I'm a big chocolate fan, so I love chocolate covered orange rind. That is my favorite thing in the world. Or those little coconut collaborative chocolate pots. They're divine. They're delicious. But I can't really serve Lee Miller and Mrs. Dalloway and Esther Perel just some chocolate. I would have
I
just a
mean,
box
why
of
not?
chocolates.
Might be a conversation starter in itself.
I'm also lactose intolerant, so it sort of limits what desserts I can have because I can't have dairy. So I would choose something like a pistachio and blood orange cake with some fresh strawberries, strawberry sorbet, some candied orange. So it's sweet but not too heavy. It's like a nice, light, summery note at the end of the meal.
And by that point, you're probably like mid conversation, sun's kind of set. I think it's nice sometimes with a dessert to have a picky situation where people
Mm.
can take part if they want, or if people are full and they'd rather not. It's not like, here's your portion of.
So I could have some chocolates as well on the side. I quite like that French dessert, a café gourmand, which is where you have a little thing of each pudding. So you might get a little
Yeah.
chocolate tart, a little creme brulee, a little, and I love that again of you just get a bit of everything. Because
Hmm.
when I'm in a restaurant and I see a menu, I also have a bit of trouble deciding because I want to try a bit of everything.
Yeah, I think it's a shame more places don't do that. Like, why can't I have just like a mouthful of each one?
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect dessert.
I think that's my approach with a lot of food. Like, I'd rather share all of the things and be able to try everything than have a whole portion of something and be bored like halfway through.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Yeah.
And then be jealous of like what everyone else has got around me. Petition to start that, like, I'll just have a little bit of everything on the dessert menu. Okay, that sounds amazing. That sounds like such a delicious meal. Are you drinking something separate with dessert? Sorry.
Yes, we are finishing with a Negroni because I think the bitter taste of the Campari would really go with the bitter taste of the blood orange in the cake. And I love a Negroni. It's probably my cocktail of choice. I lived in Venice for 6 weeks back in 2012 and had all the spritzers and Negronis and really got a taste for the Campari rather than the Aperol. I find Aperol is quite sickly sweet. I love the bitterness of a Negroni.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of swing between the two. We actually went to Italy on our and drank so much Aperol that we had to move on to Campari because it's just a bit much. It's a bit much after a while. What I actually think is really good is a half Aperol, half Campari
Oh, I've
spritz.
never tried that. Maybe I should try
Yeah,
that. Okay,
I think they both
interesting.
like balance each other out because I feel like
Mm.
for me personally, a Negroni can sometimes be a bit much, but the two in the middle, yeah, try it if you haven't already. It's a good mix. Okay, so everyone's fed, wined, everyone's got their Negroni. You touched on conversation starter cards and like getting people talking in various ways. In terms of entertainment, would you do anything else other than that?
I love a game. So I like an evening to be interactive, to be playful, to bring people out of themselves, to have a bit of fun, to loosen things up, lighten the mood. I'd want to devise some sort of game. So you have the curious conversation during the dinner, and then they've had champagne, they've had wine, they've had a Negroni, they're maybe feeling a bit looser. So I would create some sort of game. I'm not sure what exactly. One Christmas, I created a version of Would I Lie to You? So Would I Lie to You is one of my favorite shows, my sort of guilty pleasure, if you are. if you like, the show with David Mitchell and Lee Mack. So we were maybe about 20 of us at Christmas, a family gathering, and I created this version of Would I Lie to You? So I got everyone to write down one truth. It's a bit like having a game of say two truths and a lie, and then we have to guess which is the lie. I got everyone to write down a truth, put it in a hat, and then I made up some as well and mixed it together. So I knew who belonged to who, and then we sat in a circle and I selected people and gave them a little card with a memory or something down, which everyone else had to guess whether it was a truth or a lie. The funniest ones were when I had written down a lie and then it happened to be true.
What
And I'd be
are
like,
the
what?
chances?
Yeah, I know. And seeing people bluff and sort of squirm their way out of it and try to tell who was bluffing and who was lying. I loved that game. Some people found it really awkward and
Yeah.
embarrassing that they had to say the lies or the truths you're saying are quite revealing about you, or they're a really embarrassing moment. But I found them hilarious. I really enjoyed that. So I'd maybe create something a bit like that, which loosens people up and leads to funny anecdotes and funny conversations.
Yeah, I love the idea of playing Would I Lie to You with family. Be so funny.
It was so good. You get some secrets coming out or some little funny anecdote which you didn't know about someone, um, especially some of the older relatives when you're like, "Oh, wow, you did that when you were younger," or it makes for funny revelations.
Yeah, but also just watching people like try and worm some sort of lie into reality must be very funny. Okay, so let's talk music briefly. What will you be listening to at your dream dinner?
Like candlelight, I think music really sets the ambience and the scene. Just a little bit of background music, so it's not completely dead and quiet. So I'd have some soft background music like Krungban, Jungle, Marabou State. I'm a big fan of Jungle, so if they could also be there live, that would be amazing. And then I love a dance as well. So later on in the evening, I'd want some fun disco, soul, maybe even a bit of ABBA. I'd want to get people dancing into the night.
I feel like Jungle would actually be quite good at like doing a bit of a transition into like putting their take on some like dancey numbers.
That would be the dream. They'd start off quite chilled, and if you can imagine them in the garden setting with the light coming on, the golden light, that would work perfectly.
Also, have you seen any of their music videos? Like they've got some moves.
Yes, those dancers going through the flower beds in Charleston, that could be really cool. And coming round the dinner table and getting people involved in the funky dance moves. Yeah, I'd be down for that as well.
Become a full immersive experience.
Yeah, I think that's what these events should be, an immersive
Yeah.
experience, not just about the food or the setting, but really getting involved.
We've set the scene for your dream dinner. I have some quick fire questions for you to end on. Sweet or savoury?
Savory. I think I already touched on that with I've got a savory tooth rather than a sweet tooth.
Favourite cookbook?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't really follow a recipe, so I don't know if I've got a favorite cookbook. I do have lots of cookbooks, but to say just one, I love Ottolenghi, so all of Ottolenghi's ones. His simple one is a bit easier to follow.
I actually don't have that one, but I have one of the newer ones. That's his original one, isn't it?
The simple one, I think he did it a couple years ago, and it features less ingredients. Some of his recipes have really complicated ingredients or things you might not be able to find in your local Sainsbury's. So I think this one, he reduces the amount of the ingredients while still packing in the flavour.
Especially when people just don't have as much time these days. Takeaway of choice.
Sushi. I'm a big fan of sushi. There's one near me in Peckham where they do a crispy duck roll, which is really good because I love Chinese duck pancakes. So it's like that, but in sushi. And they also do a spicy tuna, which is just the perfect level of spice and umami flavor. And yeah, that would be my takeaway of choice.
Sushi is like the thing that I am craving the most being pregnant.
Oh, I missed that too when I was pregnant. That was the one thing I really wanted.
Yeah, I'm like, people keep asking me what the thing that I want to eat post birth is, and I'm like, salmon sashimi or like a smoked salmon bagel would also hit the spot, I think. What's the place in Peckham called that you that you would get your takeaway from?
I think it's called Momo's Sushi Bar. I think it's actually in Camberwell, but they say it's in Peckham.
Yeah, I feel like sushi's one of those things that when unless you know a good one from having been there, it can be a bit risky on like Deliveroo.
It's also something you can't make yourself,
Or you can, but it's just very time consuming.
and it would never be the same. It wouldn't
Yeah,
be half as good. So when I want to treat myself to a takeaway, I want to get something which I would never do as well by myself.
yeah, I agree. Supermarket of choice.
Oh, I feel like this says a lot about a person if they choose Waitrose, they're a bit posh. If they choose Aldi, maybe they're not. Well, I go to Sainsbury's because that's what's near me. If there was a Waitrose near me, I'd probably go to Waitrose. They've just reopened the M&S in Brixton.
It's good now, isn't it?
It's really good. It's a whole sort of experience of going there, and there's so many lovely things. Like, you can't just pop in for a pint of milk or whatever. I tried those Serrano ham crisps. They're so good. I'm not usually a meat eater, and I try to be pescatarian, but I have a real soft spot for charcuterie. And they're these crispy Serrano. You'd think they'd be in the crisp section, and they should probably be in the crisp section because they're like a packet of crisps, just ham, really thin, crispy, very umami and yummy.
I feel like you can't go wrong with M&S. M&S food. It's very easy to get carried away. It's like pop in for milk and bread, leave with £30 worth of random picky bits. If you're me. No dinner party would be complete without.
Conversation, I think that is for me is the key. I do love food, and I love taking my time over food and enjoying a really delicious meal. But the real reason why I would gather for a dinner party would be to connect with other people. So that's what I would like to take away from an evening, something which has sparked my curiosity, a new thing I've learned, an interesting story, something to remember. So definitely the conversation people bring.
Yeah, that's such a good one. Okay, let's do a couple more. Go to hangover meal.
Oh, I love this. Maybe because I'm hungover quite frequently, but I know what I would choose. But as getting older, I get hungover over just 2 drinks now. So
Yeah, it's
maybe
hard.
it's a bit more frequent than before when I was a young student and could drink a bit more. But Marmite on toast. I love Marmite on toast.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's my hangover food.
That's so fun. Usually it's like pizza, fried chicken.
It's something about that sort of salty, savoury taste
Yeah, I
which
get it.
really hits with lots of butter, really nice piece of sourdough, but not like a hard sourdough, a nice soft granary sourdough, brown sourdough, a good spread of Marmite, and yeah, the savoury taste of it really satisfies that.
Okay, if you could only eat one country's cuisine for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably, I do love Japanese food. I love noodles and sushi and ramen, but from a practical point of cooking things myself, I think it would have to be Italian. There's nothing as comforting as a bowl of pasta. I think that would be the most versatile if you only had to eat that for the rest of your life. Italian would be the most versatile, the freshest, perhaps the healthiest in terms of the Mediterranean diet with all that beautiful produce. Yeah, lots of pasta.
Delicious. Do you have a like go to if you're ordering pasta at a restaurant? Like what would be your pasta of choice?
If I was at a restaurant, I'd choose spaghetti vongole, which is with clams. It's a dish which seems really simple, but it's all about the quality of the ingredients. So, really fresh clams, good olive oil, a bit of white wine, maybe some parsley, some garlic, a bit of chili. Again, not so easy to recreate at home, maybe because you just have to have really good clams. But yes, that's something which I would definitely choose and not necessarily make myself.
Oh, yum. I always get so hungry after these recordings.
I know it's coming up to lunchtime and now I want this whole meal.
I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much. That was so fun. Do you want to let people know where they can find you if they don't follow you already?
Yes, come follow me on Instagram, Cate St Hill, Kate with a C, and I also have a website, but probably Instagram's the best bet to come find me.
And to go and buy your new book, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. Is yeah, of course. The book is available on Amazon, Waterstones, all good bookshops.
Must be crazy seeing something that you wrote like on a shelf? Have you been into a bookshop and like just seen it on the slide yet?
This weekend I saw it in the window of my local bookshop, Herne Hill Books, and it was so lovely
That's too
seeing it
wild.
outside. I walked past and I was like, ah, it's there, it's my book.
And you didn't know it was going to be there. Oh my God.
Well, I
Amazing.
did actually, because I went into the bookshop and was like, you should stock this book. It was a few weeks later that I actually saw it there. So
Everybody should go and buy it, and good to know that they have it in Herne Hill. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was so good to chat to you.
it's been wonderful. Now I want to make this a reality and set up this dream dinner party, except two of the guests don't exist anymore.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Tables to Talk About. If you liked it, I'd love if you'd hit subscribe and left us a little review. It really helps people find us and means I can keep lining up dreamy guests to chat all things dinner parties. If we've got you in the mood to host, you can find all the playful tableware and styling bits you need over at Studio Dine, Studio Dine Store, and Tables to Talk About. And we've just launched a Substack. It's where I'm sharing all the juicy behind the scenes bits, exclusive extras from the pod, hosting tips, recipes, mood boards, restaurant recommendations, the works. Basically a little peek behind the curtain. Head to the link in the show notes to subscribe and come and hang out with us there too. See you next time.